And then got just one thing to tell you about, well, two things to tell you about, and then we'll turn it over to Emmanuel. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh. Oh. Thank you, Floyd. All right, let's pray. Father, we live in a world that is definitely broken, definitely not as you would like it to be. Sometimes we get to see little glimpses of things moving in the right direction, like the news that Kay Gibson's friend's grandson is responding well to treatment. We love to hear things like that. We are also know that death is not your original intent, and so we ask you to surround the Humphreys family, friends of Floyd, just bring them comfort. Father, we also want to lift up West Shell's father in particular and ask that you would, that these tests he's undergoing would reveal a path forward for whatever it is he's dealing with. And we ask that you would be with Steve and Rhonda Harris, be with Steve as he begins this treatment tomorrow. May it not be as rough and difficult as they're being told it could be, but whatever, may it actually accomplish what his doctors are hoping it accomplishes for him. We know there are others who are in need of our ongoing prayers, and we have folks in our own hearts that we're lifting up. Father, help us to be your hands and feet in just being servants to those who are in need. Give us encouragement tonight through Emmanuel. We look forward to hearing what he and Pam were able to do, and excited about that. And help us to be motivated to ourselves be people who, wherever we find ourselves, represent you well. It's through Jesus we pray. Amen. So the two brief things. Number one, for those involved in HopeWorks, actually beyond those involved in HopeWorks, it says all are invited Tuesday, September the 2nd from 4 to 6 p.m. to do this, to write scriptures and words of encouragement on the concrete slab of Next Story, our transitional housing facility. It's located next to the HopeWorks building. Once the floor is laid, these words will not be visible, but the truth will permeate the construction and mark the planting of God's word under the soles of these men's feet. I think that's really cool. So be mindful of that, even if you can't go and add a word. And then finally, Germantown Church of Christ invites OC members to attend a marriage retreat that's coming up in a couple of weeks. Details on their website, or I believe there's a link in the Wednesday email. The guest speaker is some unknown named Keith Fussell. But anyway, we're invited to go there with them. And I don't think they want us there to heckle. I think they want us there to be supportive. So we'll leave that over. Emmanuel, please come tell us about Nigeria.
Good evening, everyone. I appreciate you all coming out this evening to listen to our report for the work we did this summer in Nigeria specifically. However, it was laying a foundation for a bigger work that will be done all through the year in Africa. I'm going to be mindful of the fact that I have just 1 hour, except you all will indulge me to stay longer. But I'll try to finish as much as I can in this hour. But the story here will take us probably days to finish. So I'll be glad to stay back. I'll be glad to meet with any of you, or even come to your house for lunch or dinner, or take a ride in your boat and to discuss more of this with you. So some of the things you're going to see are just glimpses of the things we were able to do in partnership with OC and the folks back in Nigeria. So typically, when I give presentations like this, I don't want to assume everybody knows everything about Africa. And some of the slides you're going to see today are slides you've seen in the past. But if you'll indulge me for me to just give a brief background of the area where we worked, which will form a very important foundation to explain some of the things we did. This is one of my most interesting slides, the first one I'm going to put up, that Africa has been part of the gospel story. What many people may not understand, there are certain places in Africa that was mentioned even in the Bible. So it gives me a little bit of pride to mention that. We don't want to talk about the slavery in Egypt and that one. That's just not one of the things we want to talk about, just the good stuff. So when you read about Africa, you hear places like Egypt where Joseph and Mary had to flee from Herod's massacre. And that's somewhere here in the northern part of Africa. Right now, it is mainly, Muslim-dominated area. I'm trying to coordinate this, and it's confusing me, sort of, going back and forth. Okay, so when you read about history of things like Jesus and the family running away, somewhere in Africa there, in a place called Egypt, and you hear stories of a man called Simon who was forced to help Jesus to carry his cross. He's from a place we don't call Libya, also in northern Africa. And of course, our famous story of the Ethiopian eunuch who was converted by Philip on his way back home and was known to be, or believed to be, the first person that took the gospel to the continent of Africa. So basically, with some tinge of pride, that Africa has been there right from the beginning, involved in the story of the gospel and involved in the story in the New Testament. So we're talking about Africa, one of the largest continents, second to Asia in the world. It's a place that houses about, I guess I'll be reading from here. So it has about 1.4 billion people across 50 nations. To my students, the thing is just one country, and they ask often, who is the president of Africa? So I delight them by saying it's Nelson Mandela. So they surprisingly believe it. You'll be having graduates in a couple of years who will be walking around thinking it's very confused. So, but it has about 50 different countries with different presidents. Unlike what you see on the map, it is actually a huge, huge continent where it fits both Europe and United States and other countries, a little bit countries here, Australia, can fit into that one continent. It's made up of about 2,000 languages. Those are just the main languages spoken there. Even the small country of Nigeria has about 500 plus languages. And I'm sure you've heard us say this before, that Pam and I, even though we are from next door states, we don't speak the same language, literally and figuratively. So we speak two different languages. So people ask us, what do you speak at home? I say, she speaks English, and I just nod my head. So apart from even the vast size and languages, religion also, it's been said that in Africa you can find almost every religion in the world. So it has diverse religion. And all this makes it a very complex country to evangelize, which we'll talk about that. But interestingly, it's one of the fastest growing regions for Christianity. It's such a fertile ground to evangelize. As the Pew Research states that right now the United States has the most number of Christians in the world. However, which is about 11% of the Christians, followed by Brazil. And down the line there, you will see Nigeria as number 6. But it is projected that in 2050, the countries are climbing up. So in 2050, we will have places like Nigeria coming as the third country with the most Christians. So hopefully, Scott and I will still be on the missions team, and Chase will be an elder by then. So yeah, that's about 20 years to come. And when you look at the rise, the way it's going, they are projecting that eventually you will have missionaries coming from Africa to come and evangelize the United States. So it gives a kind of exciting feeling, you know, having a reverse, but it's something that we should be happy about, that a continent, a country that we helped raise, will eventually come down to do some good with us in the United States. So the take-home message in all of this is that although it's a very complex continent to evangelize, it is also one of the most fruitful places, and it has tremendous potential for the growth and the spread of the gospel. And that's why we find a lot of people pouring a lot of resources in there. When you go in, there are people receptive, people just eager to listen to you, talk to them. And you can never have a situation where you stay there for a couple of months without having somebody responding to the gospel, which is one of the exciting things that we encounter every time we go. And we also feature in our reports. So let's talk about the mission work that we do. But our focus mainly is in Nigeria, and there's a reason for that. So this is where we base our work, in Nigeria. And Nigeria has about 230 million people. In contrast, or in comparison, that's about 6 times California. So you can fit the population of California in Nigeria, and that's about 2/3 of the United States. It's considered to be one of the most populous, the largest black nation in the world, and one of the most populous nations in Africa. Also, it has about 500 plus ethnic groups that speak more than 520 different languages. So Nigeria itself is a very complex place to evangelize because of such diversity. Americans, when they come over there, you have a problem of language, culture, difficulty, adjustment. So it makes it a very difficult place for folks coming from over here to evangelize. But yet, we've been very blessed to have many people overcome such challenges. The country is divided roughly into 2 main religions, Muslims and Christians. It has some other traditional worship spots here and there, but the predominant religion is Islam. Our president right now is actually Muslim, and the vice president is a Muslim too, which creates a little bit of tension, because initially the agreement was, if you pick a president who is a Muslim, you have to pick a vice president who is a Christian. But it turned around this cycle of election, both of them happen to be Muslims, and they kind of lean towards policy that promote Islam. So the yellow circle you see there is where we base, that's the state, the capital of the nation, Abuja, and that's where we base most of our work. So you can see there that we are right in the center of Islam. And the circle in blue there is where you have the region where Boko Haram operates, and I'm sure you've heard about this. So we're not too far from them, and they do what they do, then run over to the north, to Niger, another country in Africa. So from time to time, they come into the state capital in yellow there and do some cause some chaos, then run back to their base. So you have a lot of kidnappings going on in that area. A lot of Christians are killed in that area. And when they do the kidnapping, they do that for ransom, most of the time to get money to fuel. Boko Haram literally means Western religion is evil. So they try to prevent their girls, especially from going to school to get educated. And they try to prevent anything that promotes Christianity. In most of those places, if you get converted to Christianity, it's automatic death sentence, and then your church gets burned for converting one of them. So their religion is forced upon you by threat, and also they try to prevent you from spreading anything that would say anything about Muhammad or Islam. Please stop me midway. This is not necessarily a Bible class. If you have any question, or if you want to say something, for those of you who have been to these places before. So, as I said, the vastness and complexity reveals some challenges that we encounter there. We've had reports of religious war, Christians being killed and massacred. I mean, it happens every so often. The rate of poverty is increasing by yearly. Over 40% of the people, they live in poverty. Unemployment is like 30% for the youth, and the security crisis. So when you go in there knowing that, well, I don't want to scare anybody that may plan to go with us, but there is some risk going there. So whenever we go, we are always mindful of the fact that we may end up getting kidnapped or stopped along the way, attacked, or sometimes even robbed. So you have to be mindful and careful doing some of these things. But we pray. Before our team go out every day, we pray, and sometimes we try not to take Pam with us in some places we go, although she stubbornly insists on going sometimes, because we don't know what may come about our going, if we'll be able to come back. There are some foreigners, when they come, they go around with armed security just to make sure they don't encounter any violence or being kidnapped by the Muslim folks over there. So all this makes it where we don't have a lot of foreigners coming again to evangelize. And it makes it where we have to come up with a plan that if we bring people over there, how do we ensure their security, and how do we still make sure we can do the mission work without being harassed? So the plan that we had from the beginning was to partner with indigenous people, our preachers over there. So we go there and get preachers, doctors, folks who are well established, and we train them and equip them to where they now they hold medical outreach, preaching campaigns. We plant churches, we support newly planted churches towards church growth and church maturity, all with the goal of where they can now use Nigeria as a springboard to go to other places in Africa. And those places in red circles are the places that our team has been able to go into to preach the gospel. There are actually 2 countries in Africa that are well established in terms of churches of Christ or Christianity, and that's Ghana and Nigeria. So Ghana and Nigeria, they have this, they share this vision where we can become so well matured and we can take the gospel from that country and go to other places in Africa. It gives us, 1, ownership, and 2, it makes it easy for us to move from where we are to all these places, compared to if we have American brethren or people from Europe coming to evangelize, where they have to now overcome, like I said earlier on, language barrier, cultural barriers, and even the finances of coming over. We would like missionaries to come from the United States, but we're trying to do it where we can take ownership and actually do the evangelism ourselves. In a couple of weeks, there will be a conference held somewhere in Sierra Leone. A group of Christians started something called Africa, Claiming Africa for Christ. So about 25 years ago, they came together and said, why not let's see how we can evangelize the continent, Africa, by Africans. And with the support, although with the support from the United States, we should be able to do the work ourselves. And one of our missionaries plans to attend that conference. So there's this ongoing push and desire for us to take ownership of doing mission work in Africa. And that's the concept that the African team we have there. They've bought into that concept, and they're strongly pushing that concept where when we go, we equip them with what they need. We equip them with medical resources. We equip them with books, Bibles. Brother Ed Davis writes some books. So we give them all these tools so that when we leave back to the United States, they can continue doing the work even in our absence. Oliver Creek generously supports the work fund for what they do. One of the policies we have in the mission team is we do not pay salaries to our missionaries there, because most of them, if not all of them, are active preachers and the churches support them. So what we do is just support their work fund, money they need for moving around, money they need to buy tools that they use to preach. We do have some preachers there who are receiving salaries, and some of the some of that comes from individual members that send support to cover for their salary. So that's the plan, and that's the goal of what we accomplish whenever we go on the mission trip, just to equip them and prepare them and equip them enough to where they can continue the work and go outside Nigeria to do the evangelism. And that's why it's called African Missions. So the take-home message is here is that despite or because of these challenges, God's mission continues to press on. We strive for the Jesus method. We try to meet the physical needs of the people, the community, while also meeting their spiritual needs. And I like what Dr. Dan Boucher said a couple of years ago when we met with him in Texas. He said, until we can train our missionaries wherever they are, for them to be invested enough and to work with us as partners, it continues to be a relationship of ownership rather than partnership. So when we go to a place and you just come with an agenda, you give them what they need and tell them how it should be done, it continues to be a sense where they feel dependent on you. But if you train them how to do the work and equip them what they need and allow them to take ownership of it, eventually it thrives better than what our old missionaries used to do. So, and that's the concept we hold, and that's the concept we're pushing in our mission trips as we go. So, what did we do in these 2 months in Nigeria? Well, first of all, you have to go on that wonderful flight for 13 hours. You can't afford to miss that except if you can swim long distance. And that will be across the Atlantic Ocean. So you fly to Atlanta, then from Atlanta, you take a flight either directly to Abuja. Oh no, they don't have a direct Abuja. You go to Europe, then to Abuja, or you go straight to Lagos, which was the former capital of Nigeria. Then from Lagos, we now go to Abuja. For the first time in a long time, we had no incident on this trip. So the flight was smooth, nothing happened along the way. Our luggages were not lost. We didn't miss the flight. The air hostess were perfect. No, they were not okay. But so we made it there, and we were very, very happy that when we looked at the weather forecast in Bartlett on that day, we saw that you guys were enjoying a nice summer, while we had all month, the temperature was in the 80s. So I don't know where the concept came from that Africa is hot. Well, look at that. So it was a nice weather for us. It rained most of the time while we were there. Now, the last slide you saw was where I had to change the PowerPoint because I attended a Bible class last week by Dr. Chloe, and I said, I wish we didn't invite him. Because Pam and I looked at each other and we said, you know, we have to change the whole presentation because what he said was just so practical and applicable to what we do on our trips. So we had to model all our activity to fit what he shared with us, which was very powerful. If you were not here last week, he shared with us some practices of missional living. And they were just something we realized you don't only need to do that for local mission, it also applies for overseas mission. And we plan to share this with all our missionaries that whenever they go, where they go, they need to try to apply some of these practices. They were just very practical. So I took the liberty to adjust or change some words. And these are the 5 things he shared with us that when you go on mission, these are the 5 things you should look at doing. 1, dwell in the word. Just go and see. Don't, he used Paul's example. And it's just, I was working with Pam the other day and she told me, even when Jesus came, for 30 years, we didn't know what he was doing. And I believe he was just watching humans, probably shaking his head that I can't believe I made these people. So for 30 years, he did nothing, just sat and watched and learned. The missionary in me and the missionary of the past that I'm used to seeing in Nigeria, when they come with an agenda, they come with plan. And there's nothing bad in planning what you want to do. But we're seeing that some of these things don't work with the community. So we went there and just wanted to watch and just listen. We did the same thing in Ukraine. In, not yet. We did the same thing in Athens and in Argentina. There's something about just going into somebody's space and just sitting down to just listen to them. Just watch. It's hard because you have all this energy boiled up in you to want to say something, to want to suggest, to want to give them ideas on how to. But with time, you come to see that it doesn't build partnership. Like I said, it only builds ownership. And they're not bought into it. So go and see, which is what we're going to invite some of you at the end of this class to come with us in June, to just come and see. And we've already gotten some people committed to go. The Robins have already booked their ticket. I thought we did last week. So just go and see, then listen. So when I went there, the very next day when I went, I invited the preachers, the preachers all over the place in Abuja. We sat down and I just listened to them and said, tell me what's going on, what are your struggles, what are your challenges, what are your fears, what are your prayers. And we just had a 3 hours powerful listening session. I asked questions and they just talked. I mean, at the end of it, they felt relieved that they just had so much on their heart. So we just listened. Then from there, we went into going to share stories. We had stories to share with them. They had their own stories to share with us. And eventually, we now went into engaging them based on what they felt or they told us were their needs. Went into communities to pass food, to evangelize, to do medical mission. And then we talked about some future things that we want to invest, which, as he said, there are experiments and there are risks. But again, when the Lord sent us out as evangelists, that was a risk he was taking, to trust humans with the most important mission he came to earth with. So risk-taking is part of mission. So dwelling in the word. So as I said, we try to go into their communities, and this comes with some risk also, because you are now, it's funny because you all say I have an accent. I don't hear it. I don't think I do, but I'll believe you. But when I go into Nigeria, they say I speak differently, that I have an American accent. I say, I think your ears must be. So when you walk around and they hear you speak, you're already open for things like kidnapping, because you look different, maybe from your skin tone or from your dressing. So going into the marketplaces, into the community, was a risk of its own. But we had to go see where they lived. We had to go to where they worshipped. And this is a very funny picture. If you see the picture here, there's this picture here. We are going to church to worship one Sunday, but we had to pass through this narrow wall here to get to the other side. And literally, that's the only road you can go through. But it was so narrow that Chino and I could not walk through straight, so we had to go sideways. And I felt maybe the church put up their building across that alley for a reason, to depict that the way to eternal life is narrow and only very few will find it. But it was really funny. Just so I said, thank God I only gained 10 pounds. If not, I would have been stuck in between the wall. So here you see, I preached, the pictures are not coming well, I apologize. I shared a sermon with them here on living as foreigners or living as Christians in the foreign world. The church building is basically put 4 walls, then a tin roof. So in the hot summer, you can feel the heat coming down straight on you. A funny thing happened here. Next to this church building was a Pentecostal church. And they had a loudspeaker just facing us. I mean, they were so loud. Unfortunately, we didn't have our instrument to compete with them, and they had bigger bands and trumpets. So it was at that point I said, I wish we used instruments so we can compete against each other. But eventually they toned down, they closed early, so I was able to preach. The picture you see here is one of my favorite pictures. This is Brother Emmanuel, one of our missionaries, and as I've told most of you, he was responsible for converting me. And then I was responsible for mentoring this young man who visited us. I didn't even know he was coming. He is the director of the environmental department in Nigeria. So it was a case of grandfather, father, and grandson. So we had a nice time fellowship together. So we spent time with Adegoroye's Gloria, who was sick. We spent some time praying with her, went to visit other people that were sick. Just an attempt to just make them know that we just didn't come in to just preach to them, but wanted to actually spend some fellowship time with them. And this is one of our old pictures to show you some of the scenes of Christians where they worship. This is one of the churches. We didn't worship with them that Sunday, but I worshiped with them before. They meet underneath a tree, and this is them taking communion. So even when it rains, hopefully the tree prevents the rain from soaking wet. So it just puts some things in perspective, especially when my children, when Chino and Elechi used to go with us, and they complain about the room being cold or too warm. I say, people actually worship out in the open, and they don't even bat an eyelid. They are happy to do it. So it just shows that in any condition, some people don't look at the condition of where they worship. They just want to worship God. So we went with preachers, sat with them, and Pam led some sessions with some of the women. Maybe she will have something to say about that. So we had women coming into classroom for her to just talk to them. And some of the things she shared with me was just mind-blowing. Amazing, some things that women didn't even know or realize was happening to them. Pam, you want to say something about that? And in a culture, in a country where information can be sometimes difficult to ascertain, you believe anything anybody tells you. There was someone that told me that, somebody who is educated and actually was educated here, that if you have a snake bite, all you have to do is just pick up the snake itself and put it on the snake, on the spot of the bite, and it was I don't know how, to suck in the venom. I said, no, it won't. It will bite the second time, and you'll probably be dead the second time. It doesn't work that way. So you have all these things people just pass. So one of the things we did, which we're going to come to with the radio station, is to now bring up things that we demythify some of these things they hear. My mom, when she was afraid of getting COVID. So they told her if you bathe with salty water, it's going to prevent the COVID. And I called her and said, Mom, I don't think that's true. She said, how do you know? I raised you. I said, Mom, yes, you sent me to school. I know this stuff. She said, that my neighbor told me. And I had to convince her. And for one of the few times you tell your mom this, that Mom, I actually have a PhD in this. But that didn't work, so she kept on taking a shower with salt. But these are some of the things we battle with when we go on our clinic, to let people know what they need to do to stay healthy. We have a very high rate of high blood pressure, diabetes. We come across people that have blood pressure of 100 and 200. So they are walking stroke. I mean, somebody will be in church leading song and start bleeding through the nose, probably ruptured a blood vessel. So the what's the death rate, life expectancy? Do you remember? But it was like 15, 20 years lower than United States. So a lot of the things, and why that is a problem is because the church is now burdened with a lot of sick people, and the little finances they have to use it to take care of those people that are sick. So some of these things end up even weighing down on the church so much that they can't do what they want to do, like evangelize. So it's very important that we try to help them medically and try to educate them with their health concern. So the next thing we did next was, so we wanted to address, one of the issues was wanted to see how we can get the local churches, the elders, the deacons, and the community leaders to join and partner with us to take over some of this work when we go. So for some time, we've been bothered about the security, both our security and the security of people coming over. And as I told you initially, the rate of kidnapping, although it has slowed down, was still a little bit concerning to us, that if we are going to invite people to come over, we need to provide a place for them where they can stay safe. So a friend of mine who had a building, a torn down building that he wanted to get rid of. So we invested in this building here and got it renovated to this state here, to where it can now serve as, number one, a Bible guest house for people coming from here to stay, and it's secure, in a secured place where it's away from places, the people that could come cause riots or kidnapping. So we had this launched. This was done all year around the renovation, and Pam left early to help oversee the completion of this. So at the launching of this building, we called the community leaders, the elders and the deacons, to explain to them the project and the fact that this is what we're trying to do. It also is going to serve as a refuge where if we ever encounter a riot or any Islamic Muslim disturbance, people can actually go in there and just stay till the police or the government quells it down. So this was a major project that we got involved in. So during the launching of the building, we invited the community people to come in and share in our vision and our dream. Actually, we had a building, we bought the building in order to use for one of the rooms that was supposed to be used for the radio station. Another room was supposed to be used for the guest house. They wanted to use another section to use for a vocational school. When we go establish churches, some of the churches that are established are actually denominations that get converted into Pentecostals that get converted into the Church of Christ. So the pastors in those places, one of them is this guy in the middle here. Since he's now a Christian, he doesn't have a source of income anymore, since his church has now been converted into the true faith. So one of the things we're encountering was we had a lot of preachers that didn't have a way to sustain themselves. So for a long time, we planned, okay, can we just start a vocational school to where the preachers will come and learn a trade, something to the tone of what Paul did as a tent maker. So they will learn a trade, and they will be able to sustain themselves with that trade, either carpentry, electrical work, welding. And by doing that, they can also bless the community. So this building was supposed to be used for all those things until we met with some of the locals there, and they said it's going to be a lot of complexity for you to assure safety of your people coming over here, and you have all that in this building. So we shelved that idea and used the entire building as a Bible guest house. So this was very powerful because all the elders in the community, in the state, in that area were here, deacons and preachers, and we got them to commit to being part of this mission and part of the vision of what we. Yeah. Yeah, we had them go into the rooms. They split. The elders went into the rooms, prayed, went around the place, prayed for peace. Who? Yeah, they probably thought we were spiritual kind of people, whatever. So that was very hectic. And imagine putting up a building. For those of you who have done renovation while you were here, now imagine doing a renovation from overseas, over here, supervising a building. It took a lot of hours overnight watching videos and telling the people, put that block over there. No, on top. So it was exciting to see it eventually launched and completed. So in our visit there, we had a lot of people that wanted to share the story with, well, people that their lives testifies to just the wonderful work of God. There's this lady here called Etido. She struggled through school. We think she was dyslexic, so she didn't finish school. And it took her quite a while to eventually get married. When she got married, she was blessed with 2 children. After a while, her husband passed away. And typically, when you don't understand the reason for certain things, you find the easiest thing to blame or the easiest person to blame. So her in-laws blamed her that she was responsible for the man's death. They claimed she had some spiritual witchcraft thing that killed the man, which they said it, but they didn't act on that. Then not long after that, her only daughter died again. So that was just the straw that broke the camel's back, and they just tossed her out of the house. So they kicked her out of the community that she must, there's no way, almost like a Job situation. You must have done something wrong, and there's some evil spirit around you. So she was kicked out of the place and just deserted. So we went, heard her story, found her, and invited her over to come and work in the guest house. And the beautiful thing about the guest house is that whatever funds they get from it runs the guest house. So there's no money being given to it to sustain itself. As of now, we've not gotten to that point. So it runs itself, and then she's getting salary working in the guest house as a cleaner, as a custodial worker. Then we have Fidelis, this guy in the middle here. His dad had 8 children and was a very prominent businessman in the north. And they did the mistake of converting a Muslim into a Christian. And they were targeted to be killed. Not them, but members of the church. So they burnt down their church building, and him and his dad escaped and came down to Abuja. Eventually, he died. We think of heart attack or something. So he was left to fend for himself. Now he's working with the radio station as the web and social media manager. Then we have Brother King. He is one of my favorites. He is a counselor and has been a very excellent song leader for a long time until he developed multiple myeloma. He was looking for funds for a long time to go to India to get treatment. And eventually he got some, thanks to some contributions from members here. He got some funds and went to India. Because of the treatment, he has lost 90% of his sight. But while in bed having chemo treatment, he still has a special phone that he uses to preach and to conduct Bible classes. So he just texted me 2 days ago that his treatment might be working. So some of these stories just make you feel, if these folks can be this dedicated to the mission work or to what they're doing, then what excuse do I have not to do as much, if not even more? Any question or any contribution, please do not hesitate to stop and ask questions if you do have any. So these are the stories we hear that just inspires us. And we have our own stories that we share with them. Of course, they always want to hear stories about Elechi and some other things that just some stories you all have shared with us. So it was a very good, powerful experience where they have their stories to share. Not as if we're comparing notes, but just we all shared real life testimonies of how God has worked in our lives, individually and collectively. So another story that just got very interesting where when Elechi transitioned, a couple of folks gave some, in lieu of flowers, they made some donations through Oliver Creek. And we had told the elders some time ago what we had planned to do with some of these funds. So we started about 2 years ago to get a scholarship program established that will look for either orphans or kids from poor families to sustain them through the education. Education is actually one of the surest way of getting to poverty. Getting out of poverty. So not into poverty. You can either go get educated or hope through sports. So when you train somebody through college, you change a generation, because by training that person, he or she in turn will come around to help train the younger ones and also help in the church. So there are some folks there that we asked to send us some names of people that may be, they may qualify to get some scholarship funds. So far, we keep 10 people in the program to put them through college. And these are some of the pictures of people you see. We only target medical students because that's the only profession you can be assured to get a job. And some of these people have been very grateful, and some of them have even finished and gone in turn to help the church and also their families. And you can see some of their responses there that they're writing, just grateful. They don't know where this fund is coming from, but they're aware it's coming from somewhere in the United States, and their lives have been changed from the testimony, from the report you see there. This idea was, we stole this idea from the African Christian missions years back, about 30 years back, when they decided to start training medical students. And this was one of their first recipients of the project about 30 years ago or 40 years ago. So she got trained or sponsored as a medical student. And I think those of you that went with us to Texas, you were there when she came as a guest keynote speaker. She graduated and became a consultant surgeon at one of the universities. She's gone around to bless many lives and bless the church as a whole. So this was a very exciting project that we got to talk to some of them, and we got to have more people enlisted in the program. Another good story that happened while we were there. So during my listening session with the preachers, I got to meet a brother called Brother Success, and he was telling me of his contribution in the church. He has about 4 children. One of the churches were established some miles away. He went in there to help them. So every Wednesday, as you all know, the church meets every day in most places in Nigeria. So every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, he will haul hymn books. I mean, hymn books enough for about 20 people in the church with megaphones and equipment, and haul it for about 5 miles or so to go to the church, because he lived some miles away from the church. So during the listening session, I asked him, what do you think would be the best way we can help? He said, well, if he can find a 1-room apartment to rent close to where the church meets, and the church met in a primary school, so they couldn't leave the equipment in the school, because the primary school only allowed them to use it in the evenings and on Sunday. So he said if he can find a 1-room place to rent and live just close to the school, that way he doesn't have to walk long distance. So when I met with the Africa missions team, I was talking to Brother Felix, one of our missionaries, and I said, well, we have to help Brother Success. It doesn't matter if Pam and I will have to go loan money to help him get a place to stay. So I told him, how much does it cost to rent a place for a year? one room. The equivalent was like $100 for a year. I said, if we have to find money somewhere to borrow, we will do that. And as soon as I said that, my phone, an alert came in, and it was good old Brother Todd. He said, I just got a check for missions for you to use as you desire. In fact, I shed some tears and I said, this is not a coincidence. This is just God working. So, praise be to God. He's going to look for a place, and it's not a place where he can move with his family. He's going to move by himself and go stay there on weekends, which I'm trying to convince him, can he move with his whole family? But he said he's going to have to abandon his farm and move there, and he doesn't know if he can do that. So he'll go there and stay Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, then go meet his family during the week. So this was a very interesting thing that I was very, very happy about. Okay, moving on. Then one of our major projects so far has been the radio station, and I'm taking a risk doing this, but it's a 24 hours radio station. I don't think I'll do that. Yes, it's 1 a.m. So the radio station has been a blessing to us. If you have a chance, go visit it. We have interviews from elders over here. One of the interviews that we featured has been Brother Jeff. So if you want to know much about Brother Jeff, go listen to that interview. He did reveal a lot of things. Well, I'm kidding, nothing that you don't know about. But this has been an amazing tool. If you remember in the beginning, I said one of the problems we're having is security, where if you leave where you are to go preach, you stand a chance of being kidnapped. Well, it's not, I don't want to scare you, really, it's not as if you'll be watching your back. But the radio station has provided two things. One, the preachers can stay, we finally got a station, they can stay in this little room here, a studio, and propagate the gospel to be heard all over the northern part of Nigeria so far. It's still an online radio station, so we've not yet gone to where we have our own FM dial, which will come with time because it costs some money. So it has blessed so many lives. We're having churches, denominations converted into true Christianity just from what we preach. Unhindered truth going out of the radio station. And the good thing is they can't trace it to where we are to say they will come and attack us. So lives have been blessed. I used to think it was just in Nigeria, but I came to find out from the last report that these are the places that have tuned into the radio station. So it's just amazing that just from that little 6x4, 4x4 room, places all over the world are tuning into the radio station to listen. So it has been a huge success so far, and we're hoping it will go beyond that. The only problem with it being in Nigeria, is that they have to pay to get data to listen to. Unlike us, we pay monthly, they pay as you go. So it limits the number of people that can listen to it. But if we go FM, you can listen to the radio in your car, in your house, etc. So this has been a huge success in the mission work we're doing. Then I need to quickly finish. One of the things we did also was to distribute food to the community. There's high rate of poverty. Gas is about $2.45 when we're there. And we're talking of, that's how much most of them make in one day. So for them to spend that on gas, it's just not really, doesn't make any sense. Some of the things we also do is to buy medication for children. There was a drug Elichi was taking while she was with us. St. Jude was given to her for free. But over there, it's not free, and the drug is very expensive. So we met parents who were having to make choices between, should I buy this medication for this child, or should I buy food for my child? And no parent should have to make such a decision. So one of the things we put in place was to buy, the drug is called hydroxyurea. So we provide funds for these drugs, and it's meant for sickle cell patients. So this is the food distribution that we wish we could do more, because what those ladies have on their heads can only last them for a week. And that's all they could get, but that's all we could offer. Then we had eyeglasses. Sister Judy gave us some eyeglasses to pass on. We had medication where we checked blood pressure, we checked for diabetes, we checked for malaria, we checked for typhoid. So we did that, and we had, so while they were waiting to be checked, we had a class nearby where they go in and listen to the gospel, and a makeshift baptistry made from pipes and tarp, where if anybody obeys the gospel, we just have a baptism right there. And while there, we had a couple of people baptized for those 3 weeks of 2 campaigns that we had. So what is our risk? I told you in the beginning that we had this dream of where we can have a vocational school for free, and folks come in there to learn the Bible 3 days a week and they learn the vocation. Well, this elder here needed some funds to build a church, put up a church building, and had a piece of land that he wanted to sell. So we offered him something that was just meager, and he accepted. So we got a piece of land, and we had somebody draw a plan. So our dream, our next ambition, is to build a vocational school to train preachers in basic skills that they can learn something with their hands and also bless the community. We had actually been involved with, I'm sure some of you have met her, Pam's sister, Udrak. We helped her start this in the southern part of Nigeria. She called it BISAC, Basic Skill Acquisition Center. So she called it BISAC. And this is her 2nd year graduating students. So these students have been trained in certain skills, sewing, culinary studies, etc. It's sponsored by the Vaughn Park Church of Christ in Alabama. So imagine 50 people have been given tools that they can use to change not just their lives, but the lives of their community, all for free. You come to the school, you learn a trade, the women learn trade that will probably suit whatever they want to do, and their husbands pick up the same thing. So for 2 years, or a year and a half, they learn this trade and they go use it in the community. We want to do something similar in the north, and that's why we got this piece of land here, and the plan is already drawn, so we're hoping to get some support to get this done. One of the things we also did was, if you look at this picture, although this was got from the internet, and if you had seen it, if you see it close by, it's just this young man getting water from where the upstream. You may probably find somebody washing his bike or taking a bath, and that's the water he's going to drink. But this is the real one we have close in the community where the church is established, and that's where people drink from. If you don't want to drink from here, you have to go buy what they call pure water, which is not, it's just well water that is put in sealed bag. And this costs money. So while we're there, we helped them build a borehole, which is, it doesn't assure you clean water, but it assures you free water. So what you need to do is bore this one, and we build this for the community. So with a piece of land lying not unused, we encourage the community to come and farm. If you want to farm, take a piece of part of it and farm and use it, or use it for snail farming, or do whatever you want to do with it for free at no cost. Just bless yourself and bless the community. So that's what the land is now reserved for. Yes.
That's what it sounds like?
Yeah, we eat snail. Yeah.
Just making sure.
So you know how to make escargot?
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but I can bring snail for you. The next potluck we have, I will bring that. Quickly, on a personal note, it wasn't all work. I had the time to spend with my family. As you can see, you have Chinua, Pam, and this nice gentleman here. This is my family, this is my mother, my sister. They came all the way from Lagos to join us during the opening. This is my mom again. And as some of you know, I lost my dad a couple of months ago, so I just wanted to spend more time with her before going to spend time with her downside. This is Pam and my sister. Quickly, I'll finish. In conclusion, there are 3 things, I tell my students, there are 3 things that should drive us in everything we do in life. The what, the why, and the how. If they can get these 3 things down, they can be assured of success. For us, what was our what? The desire, God's heart is to evangelize Africa, and of course everywhere else. Why? Why is this? Because Christ's love compels us to bless, heal, and bring truth amidst false premise. and what is the plan, the how, to partnership with local community members, to support local preachers and medical workers, to bless the communities, plant and mature churches, and empower Nigerians to evangelize Africa themselves. So I know we don't have any time left. That was the second bell. But I can always wait back, or if you have any quick question or comments to make. So that was our 2-month trip in Nigeria, and hopefully a couple of months, the work will be spread all over Africa, as we always hope for the rest of the year. Yes, sir. I do.
Number two, did I understand you say that you were converted?
Yes, sir.
Do you feel that that has been an advantage to you in proclaiming the word here? I know it has over there, but how do you feel about it over here? Where I'm coming from with this question is just every time I'm around you guys, I learn from you, and I appreciate that. And it's amazing to me how, with the many miles there is between there and here, you absolutely proclaim worshiping the same God the same way, and everything is the same. From our perspective, a lot of it is different, probably, from yours. But do you feel that it's an advantage, one way or the other, that you were converted there?
It would be difficult to know if I could imagine what I would be if I was converted here to compare. However, I'm the only one in my family that is a Christian. So that gives some advantage. My dad was not very easy on me when I got converted. That helped probably strengthen my faith some more, because maybe the opposition made me probably hold on to my faith more. However, the Christian situation in Nigeria helped a lot being converted there. For one, we met every day. The fellowship was probably more intimate, where you could walk into homes, calls, where we don't have cell phones then, but just there was more intimacy more. So coming over here, that seemed a little bit relaxed. I already gotten a good foundation, a strong foundation here, where I don't know if I was converted here, how my faith will have been. So maybe it will have been the same, because I see some very faithful people here. So probably I will have been, who knows, among those that probably still hold on to their faith.
How old were you?
Pretty young, probably 15, 16.
Well, if it's any consolation to you, from my perspective, you were probably one of your greatest assets as a missionary there is not only your willingness to go, but don't take your weird accent for granted. It helps you.
But you know what, Brother Fred? I'm actually lost over there. I mean, I'm a man without a country. Because while I'm here, adjusting is hard. I'm seen as an outsider, the difference. But now when I go there, they don't see me as one of theirs anymore. They don't feel I understand what they're going through. So evangelizing there now is a little bit difficult, which is why I thank God for the missionaries. Because when I try to explain some things to them, they just shake their head and say, you just don't understand what we're going through. So it's becoming even more and more difficult. And I can't imagine how difficult it will be, or it is, for Americans to be there. Because if I'm having such a difficult time trying to empathize with them that I've been where you are, an American would not be able to make that message. So it's becoming a challenge now for me to make them accept the message I'm bringing. because I don't understand. I'm not walking in their shoes. So that's some of the challenges we go through. It's worse for Pam because, you know, I have a Mississippi accent. She has an Alabama accent, which is much better than mine. So for her, when she opens her mouth, she doesn't. They just say, "No, this is not one of us." Yes, please. Any other question? Well, I will hang around in case. I know you may have, but I'll hopefully have this printed so you can read it. It's just a glimpse of 2 months of what we did. The brethren over there sends the appreciation. You all, and I'll say this quickly before I'm sorry, not taking too much of your time. The saddest thing of all this we're doing is that for Oliver Creek and all of you here, the lives you're changing, it's sad that you may never get to meet them. And that's just, it breaks my heart because I wish you could get to meet some of these people for you to see and witness how you've transformed a lot of people's lives. And when I say lives, I mean generations to come. Because when you change someone, for instance, for me, coming here, my life has changed to the point where, and this is not just being prideful, but several people, my younger siblings, my nephews, just lives that have been changed. And that's our culture. You train the first son, it's his responsibility to train everybody else. So when you change the life of one person, you change a whole pedigree down the line. So thank you all for just sticking with us and not giving up on the work in Africa. Thank you.